Hello and welcome to today's Office Hours presentation. This is Paul Hoyt. Our Office Hours presentation is a relaxed, informal mentoring program that we do every Monday at noon Pacific time. All the recordings, slides, and exercises are going to be archived in the members area of our website, and these recordings are going to be available on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/Paul Hoyt. Right now, there are 76 other Office Hour recordings that are available to you for free. That might change after a while. So I encourage you to listen to them now while you can. The reasons we do office hours is that being a successful small business owner, I know can be a great experience, but I know that it's also tough, that you need tools, education, training, and team in order to be successful. And I want to get you to get to know me, because when you do, you'll know that I really do care about you. First and most importantly, I care about you. I want you to succeed in every area of your life, no matter what that means to you. I want you to find the greatness, the happiness, the divinity that you have within yourself, and then remember it, embrace it, and live it every single day as I try to do. My passion is to increase the survival rate, accelerate the growth rate, and reduce the struggle rate of small businesses in America. My vision is to help millions of CEOs and entrepreneurs accelerate their business growth and enjoy greater harmony and balance in their lives. And you can help me by passing the word. If you find these office hours presentations valuable to you in any way, just mention them to other people and have them check them out. There's a lot of valuable information that we have available. And of course, I encourage people to attend the presentations live so that we can have the coaching opportunity with each other. Our agenda for office hours is we have an in-depth discussion of a business success principle. We have some closing remarks, special offers, and an invitation for next week's session. And then we do open Q&A and coaching. First of all, on the subject matter of the day, and then on whatever you want to talk about. I encourage you to join us on the brilliant business groups on both Facebook and LinkedIn, where we post the business success principle of the day 4 days a week on Facebook and LinkedIn, and we do the energy of the day posting every day on Facebook and on my internal blog. And during this call, if you'd like, sign on to our Facebook group where you can make comments, ask questions, share insights, and all your takeaways. Our goal is to have 20 comments and likes in the Facebook group today. We'd like to make that real interactive for people to share insights and echo back the things that they find very valuable to them. Next Wednesday, we're having an Awakened CEO Conversation, another webinar, an interactive webinar, this time with guests Tonya and Justin Rekla, who are great in the area of due diligence and background checks. And they are awakened CEOs like myself, and I know that you'll enjoy our conversation. That's Wednesday, May 13th at 6 p.m. Pacific time, so watch your emails for sign-up information. Today's topic is the Startup Owner's Manual, a step-by-step guide for building a great company by Steve Blank and Bob Dorf, published in 2012. As always, I try to relate the subject matter of the day to one or more of the key performance areas, and this one has several of them. It's about leadership and marketing and product development all rolled into one, a way that you can really increase the probability of your success and reduce the time that it takes for you to be successful whenever you're bringing a new product or service to market. Today, we're going to be talking about the authors. We'll talk about what they consider a startup to be. We'll talk about the traditional new product model and the alternative iterative product development model. We'll talk a little bit about what they consider to be the 9 deadly sins of a startup, the Customer Development Manifesto, a collection of 14 different success principles. We'll talk about the 4 steps to developing a great company, and then we'll sum it all up with the bottom line. First, a little bit about the authors. Steve Blank is recognized for developing the customer development methodology and being a pioneer in the days of the lean startup movement. He has founded or worked with 8 different startups, 4 of which have gone public. That, by the way, is pretty freaking phenomenal. It's phenomenal that you would work with 8 startups who were successful, first of all, and not all of these were successful, but to have 4 out of 8 be successful and to the point of having gone public is phenomenally really good. He also, by the way, famously lost $35 million of venture capital funds on another venture that he had, which led to the development of the customer development methodology. He's published a couple of books. The first one's called The 4 Steps to the Epiphany, which I have read, and Not All of Those Who Wander Are Lost, which is a book that I haven't read quite yet. But I'm very impressed with Steve Blank, very impressed with with the knowledge that he brings to the startup experience. His partner in this book is Bob Dorf. Bob Dorf is a serial entrepreneur, founded his first successful startup at the age of 22, and he calls himself the midwife of the customer development methodology, and that's because he worked hand in hand with Steve Blank during the time that he was developing the customer development methodology. But he has quite a good track record himself. He worked with Steve at the company Epiphany, and he co-founded a company called Marketing 101, which is later changed to Peppers and Rogers. For those of you who may not know this, Peppers and Rogers is widely recognized as one of the preeminent marketing consulting firms in the area of targeted marketing, database marketing, one-on-one marketing, which are all kind of synonyms of each other. He founded the company and wrote a seminal book in 1999 with Don Peppers and Martha Rogers. He just didn't put his name to the company, so it didn't get called, Peppers and Rogers and Dorf. For whatever reason, he decided he didn't want to do that. It also doesn't quite have the ring to it. But anyway, both of these gentlemen are very, very experienced in the world of marketing and very experienced in the world of startups, and really, I think, deserve our attention and deserve our respect when it comes to this book. When they talk about startups, they answer the question, what is a startup, with a couple of different things. First of all, they say that a startup is not a smaller version of a large company. If you take the same leadership concepts and principles that work with a large company, or one that has financial stability as an expansion mode, it will not work as a startup. In fact, you will crush the startups. They say a startup is a temporary organization designed to search for a repeatable, scalable business model. A temporary organization, meaning that the startup's not going to last forever. You want it to be reach financial stability and get into rapid expansion mode as quickly as possible. So it is a temporary organization, but it's organized different. Its intent and purpose is different. And its intention is to find that repeatable, scalable business model. And by business model, they mean how your company is going to create value for itself while providing value through its products and services to its clients and customers. From their point of view, what a startup should do is turn their guesses and assumptions into known facts. Recognize that everything about a startup is a fairy tale. Your business model that you put out there in the early days is a fairy tale until it becomes grounded in fact and grounded in experience. So this manual is for companies that have market risk. And by market risk, we mean that they need to answer the questions about, can I find my customer? Are there enough of my customers out there? Can I reach them easily so that my cost of acquisition, my customer acquisition cost, is not so high? And will they buy the products that I have, those products and services that I have, at a price that allows me to make a profit? This manual is not for, by the way, companies that have invention risk. Invention risk means that they don't know whether or not the product is going to work yet or not. If you don't know whether or not you can actually build the product, you have invention risk. And by the way, you might have both of these after you have built the product and can prove that it actually is going to work. Then it is most likely that you will also have market risk and have to answer the questions about, can I find my customers and can I reach them at a way that's cost effective and allows me to make a profit in my business? One of the points that they make that I want to make sure to make here loud and clear is that your startup is not a hero's journey. It's not about persevering against unbelievable odds and emerging as a hero on the other side. It's about defining your unknowns and making them known. And they love to say that a startup is a series of untested hypotheses. And your job is to turn those hypotheses into science experiments so that you can come out the other way with known facts. Now, by the way, this is incredibly hard for a lot of people to gather. A lot of people think of their startup as a hero's journey. I oftentimes say that there are 3 different reasons why people start a business. One of them is self-actualization. Somebody just wants to see whether or not they can do it. They want to be all that they can be, and they recognize that a startup is a learning opportunity. Maybe they've already had success in other areas of their life, and this just seems like the natural next step in their evolutionary process to start a business. But the other two reasons are a little bit more filled with angst. The other two reasons are part of a personal redemption plan or part of a desperation plan. For some people, they find that they just can't work with anybody else, that they have so much angst and so poor relationship skills that they just can't work for anybody else. And the only chance that they have of making a good income for themselves and their families is to have their own company, because they just can't tolerate authority and they don't collaborate very well. That's a challenge. Those people are going to be challenged in business in the same way that they were challenged whenever they were trying to work for somebody else, but in desperation. If there aren't any other jobs around, or they find that they just can't work for somebody else, then they just have to pursue the path of the entrepreneur. They may choose to do that. The one in the middle is the one where it really becomes the temptation to have a hero's journey. And that's when somebody starts a business as a part of their own personal redemption plan. I'm going to show them sons of guns that fired me. I'm going to prove to myself and my family or my friends that I can make it by having my own business and by being successful in my own business. Almost by definition, they see their business as a hero's journey from the very start. And to listen to other people and to follow the guidance that's in the Startup Owner's Manual is especially tough for them. But my encouragement to them, or to you if you're listening to that, if your business is part of your personal redemption plan, is to overcome that, to set that aside and listen to the good advice that's in this book and the good advice that's in a lot of other books as well. One of the points that they make is that you don't want to follow the traditional new product introduction model, which has various steps for it. Typically, it starts out with defining the concept, and then you develop the product, and then you test the product, and then you launch the product in what they call a waterfall process. Here's a diagram of a waterfall process, a very typical one in software development methodologies that this one comes from. If you can imagine a series of waterfall where you have like 3 or 4 cascading waterfalls on a very high cliff, this is why we call it the waterfall development methodology. The water, when it goes over the top and cascades to the next level and then the next level, it never goes back uphill. The water cannot, it's impossible for it to physically go back uphill. So with a waterfall development methodology, we move from the requirements phase into the design phase, then we move from the design phase into the implementation phase, then we move into the verification or testing phase, and then we move into maintenance phase, but we never go back up to the top. We never start again with the requirements. And that is the exact opposite of the methodology that new startups need to take. Here's an example of an iterative approach. This one comes from the National Cancer Institute, the National Institute of Health. I really like this diagram because of the feedback that it specifies at every step. So first we do a little high-level analysis, and then we do a little more detailed analysis for this phase of growth, and then we get feedback from our customers. Then we do design work, and then we get feedback from our customers. And then we do implementation work, and then we get feedback from our customers. And then we do some integration work, and then we get feedback from our customers. Then we deploy and analyze, and we start the whole process over and over and over again. I love this diagram because of the insertion of feedback at every step in the process. I don't normally see that, but that's exactly what the Startup Owner's Manual talks about, is getting feedback at every step in the process whenever you're thinking about bringing a product or service to market. We define the idea, we get feedback from our customers. We develop the minimum viable product or the next level of the integration and the definition of this product, and we get feedback from our customers. We get the early product out to the market, and we get feedback from our customers. And we look at it as an ongoing iterative process, as opposed to I'm going to design it once, take it to the market, and sell it and be done with it. They say that that is one of the deadly sins. In fact, it's one of the 9 deadly sins that they have. So let's talk about what they consider to be the 9 deadly sins. Sin number 1, assuming you know what the customer wants, you have to ask them. Sin number 2, assuming you know what features to build and put into your product, you have to ask the customers. If you focus on a launch date as opposed to focusing on getting it right, getting a product that your customers really want and will buy, it can cause you a lot of problems if you're just focusing on the launch date. Launch dates, by the way, and release dates are for big companies. Whenever you drive your company by having that next launch, they really want you to focus on getting it right instead of getting it here right away. And they want the emphasis to be, don't want the emphasis to be on execution, but rather put the emphasis of the early startup company on defining your hypotheses, on finding ways to test your hypotheses, learning what you can learn from that particular testing in that particular experiment, and then doing the whole thing again. One of the other deadly sins that they have are that traditional business plans presume no trial and errors. And believe me, I know that because I've written 80 different business plans out there. I, by the way, am a big fan of business plans for some companies. When you have gone through those early stages and you know what your customer wants, and it's time then to develop your growth plans that are based on customer experience, then I think is a great time to have your business plan. If you don't know what the customer wants, you don't know who your customer is, then I think it's far better to follow the lean startup methodology and the advice and counsel and the checklists that are in this book. They say deadly sin number 6 are confusing your job title with what a startup needs to accomplish. So a lot of people who come from corporate America, they want to get into a startup business and have a job title right away. They're the COO, or they're the VP of sales and marketing, or they're the CFO or the CFO or the CEO, and they get the title confused with what the job is in the early business. The job of the early business is to find the customer. The job of the early business is to figure out what the customer really wants in their product and at what price point they're really willing to buy it. And that's not relative to the job titles that we see in large companies and large corporate America. He says that there's too much focus oftentimes on sales and marketing, a rush to bring a product to market before you've done the market research is the challenge. Now, if any of you have heard me in the Business Survival Bootcamp or in my 5 Choices of Winning CEOs, you know that I frequently say that the number one job of a business is to engage with the marketplace as quickly as possible so that you can learn the lessons that only the marketplace can teach you. Engaging with the marketplace does not mean developing a product in its final form and investing $50,000 or $100,000 or $250,000 in a product before you ask the market whether or not it's really what they want and at the price point that they really want it. So you can focus too much on sales and marketing to start off with, just as the converse is true, that you can spend all of your time designing and preparing a product and get caught up in preparation paralysis and never bring a product to market. So it takes a careful balance of knowing exactly when the product is ready for that next engagement with the customers and when the product is ready and you are ready to actually go out and sell the product at first. Because if you make the mistake of taking a product to market too quickly and investing too quickly, you can have the presumption of success, which leads to premature scaling. It leads to hiring people on your staff, hiring accountants and customer service people and sales people and accounting people, putting them on staff because you just know this product is going to be a tremendous success before you've actually demonstrated that it can be a success. And finally, if you're unfortunate enough to find that you went to market too early, before you did your research, before you listened to your customers, you can get into a death spiral. You can get into management by crisis, which will give you a death spiral, and you're practically doomed at that particular point in time. We want to avoid those. So the way that we avoid those is by paying attention to the Startup Owner's Manual Customer Development Manifesto. Rule number 1 is that there are no facts inside your building. You have to get outside your building. I love this manifesto. So if you are the founder of a business, your number 1 job is to get out and talk to who you think your customers are about the product that you want to create and get their feedback on it. So, and those facts are not in your building. And oh, by the way, if you're the founder of the business, you cannot send out a delegate. This is not something that you can delegate to other people. You have to do it yourself. The reason being is because you're the founder. You're really not going to believe what other people tell you the customer said until you hear it for yourself. They recommend, by the way, talking to 100 customers. 100 customers of people who you think might be your customers. about your idea for a product and service before you ever create the minimum viable product or before you create that initial service. So they're very intent about getting out of the building and having these one-on-one conversations with your customers. Rule number 2 is you pair customer development with product development. As you are discovering who your customers are, you are also refining your product development plans and making adjustments. When you talk to somebody and they find out that they aren't your customer, you've made great progress by figuring out who is your customer, and then you want to talk to them about what they really want in the products and services that you're bringing to market. Rule number 3 is that failure is an integral part of the search. You can expect to be turned away. You can expect to be turned down. You can expect for who you thought your customer to be to say, no, I'm really not interested in that product. And that's the way we discover who our customer really is by discovering who our customer really is not. That failure is an integral part of that search for a business model and search for the customers. Rule number 4 is make continuous iterations and pivots. Every time that we go through the cycle, we make changes and adjustments to our products. Rule number 5 is that no business plan survives first contact with the customers. And I echo that 100%. They like you to use the business model canvas, which we have an example of on our website. I think it was in Office Hours 17 on the Lean Startup Methodology that we have a template in there for the business model canvas. It's available and free to the marketplace. If you want to get your own, you can come to our website. It's in our library, or you can go and just Google it online and search for business model canvas. It's a very simple 9-step process by which you define your business model and continue to evolve your business model over time. Rule number 6, design your experiments to validate your hypotheses. We've talked about that. Take a scientific approach to starting your business. Rule number 7, agree on the market type. It changes everything. We'll talk more about what market types means here in just a minute or so. Rule number 8, that your startup metrics are different from those in existing companies. Know what it is that you're going to measure and why. Rule number 9, that fast decision-making, cycle time, speed, and tempo are critical to the success of your process. So that we want to reach out to our customers, learn the lessons, change our product designs, go back out to our customers, and we want to do that process as quickly as we possibly can to save time and money in our startup. And rule number 10, it's all about passion. I'm not sure why they throw that one in here, because the rest of it, by the way, is they say it's all about process. It's all about methods that take your passion and curtail your passion, get it under control. But of course, they say that it's essential with every product, with every startup, is having passion in it. Although the whole rest of the book seems to be talking about process. Rule number 11 is that startup job titles are very different from large companies. We talked about that when it talked about the 9 deadly sins. Preserve all the cash that you have in the business until you discover your business model. And once you are confident that you have discovered your business model, then spend and spend appropriately. Rule number 13 is to share everything that you are learning with your interactions with your customers, with your interviews with your customers, to everybody in the organization, so that they keep bought into the process and they know exactly what you're doing and why. And number 14, the last one in the Customer Development Manifesto, is that customer success begins with buy-in. And that means finding your customers, getting them to say, yes, that's exactly what I want. And that's a great price. I am happy to buy your product. That's what we mean by customer buy-in. With that introduction to the 9 deadly sins and the Customer Development Manifesto, let's go into what is it that we actually do when we start up a business. They call this the 4 steps, and this, by the way, is from the 4 steps to the Epiphany. The first 2 steps are in the search phase, where we do customer discovery and then customer validation. And the second 2 steps are in the execution phase, where we do customer creation and then company building. So let's talk about these. What are the 4 steps and how do you employ them in your business? Step number 1 is customer discovery. That's where we test the perception of the problem and the desire for the customer to fix the problem. And then we test the customer's recognition that your product will in fact solve the problem and it's something that we want to buy. In a diagram, it looks a little like this. First, we define the hypotheses. I assume that my customer, or I hypothesize that my customer has this problem and that the problem is a burning problem with them that they want to solve. Then we test the problem by the interview process, and then we test the solution or the hypothesis that we have a solution to their problem by asking them, if we created a product that did this, this, and this product were selling for a particular price, would that in fact solve your problem? And would you in fact buy the product or service at this price point? So we test the problem and we test the solution, and then we either pivot, which means we change our definition of what the problem is, or we change our definition of what our solution is, and do the whole thing again, or we proceed to the next step. In the customer discovery phase, we ask questions like, hey, I'm pretty sure that this isn't exactly what you're looking for, but do you find value in this product or service, or are you having this problem? If you could wave a magic wand and change anything about your business, what would it be? And once we have defined the product, you ask questions like, what would you like to see added to this product? And what seems unnecessary or in the way? What would we take out of this product? So we really understand what the customer is feeling. We understand what the customer wants. And then at the end of the interview, you ask, what should I have asked? By the way, in this book, it is chock full of questions and checklists and all kinds of information. So this is a highlight of some of the questions that you might ask during the discovery process. They have a lot more questions for you in the book itself. And once you have passed so that you understand what the problem is, and you know that you understand that your solution will solve that problem and it's something that your customer wants to buy, then in step number 2, they call customer validation, we move into that and see whether or not we can actually build a business around what we've discovered in step number 1. So in step number 2, we test the company's ability to discover customers, close customers, and deliver in volume. We find out whether or not a $1 investment in marketing is going to result in at least $2 in revenue. And by the way, I think at least is very much at least. I really like to see at least a 5-to-1 ratio, if not a 10-to-1 ratio or more. Ideally, when your customer is up and growing, you put 10 cents in the till and you get $1 worth of revenue out the other side. So for every $10 that we spend in marketing, we want $100 worth of revenue. With any time, by the way, that you have a physical product associated with your business, you have to have that kind of ratio. Typically, companies that have physical products where there is a large cost of goods sold, a large direct cost of delivering the product or service, have to generally spend between 5 and 8%, sometimes as much as 10 or 12% of their revenues on marketing. If you have a service business, you can spend a lot more. You can spend 20 or 30%. If you have a business where the cost of delivery is practically zero, as in an information product, you can spend as much as 50 or 60% of your revenues on marketing and sales related activity. So you got to know what type of business that you are before you determine whether or not your marketing budget is appropriate and viable in the long run for your particular business model. And speaking of that, I think that the customer validation phase is probably more appropriately called the business model validation phase, because it's not really validating whether or not you have found the customer. You're validating whether or not you can sell to those customers and whether or not you can deliver in a substantial volume. Yes, you're validating the customer, but I really think you're validating your entire business model here at step 2 of the process. And in step 2 of the process, we get ready to sell. We sell to early evangelists, then we develop our positioning statements, and then we decide to pivot or proceed. We find these people. I, by the way, love this term early evangelist that's in this book. I've never seen it anywhere else, but I love it. Of course, those are the early adopters, the people who really want your product badly enough or service badly enough that they're going to be one of the first kids on the block to get it, and they're going to tell everybody else. That's what an early evangelist is. I do love that term. Gosh, I like to have early evangelists with any of the businesses that I am involved with. That's a wonderful thing to have. After you finish step 2, which is the customer validation, which I also call the business model validation, then we're ready for step number 3, which is early expansion mode. That's where you step on the gas and create a lot more customers. And the way that you do that depends entirely on your market dynamics. Remember, one of the customer manifestos was about that your type of the market makes a lot of difference. Well, these are the 3 different types of markets that they talk about in the Startup Owner's Manual. They talk about the well-defined market, which is a red ocean, where there are lots and lots of competitors in the marketplace, and the way that you step on your gas when you're stealing market share is a lot different than when you step on the gas in a new market where there essentially is a blue ocean and there are not very many competitors, or at least you have a substantially unique and different value proposition. That's a different way of coming to market. They also say that it's possible to have a hybrid of those two. So a hybrid marketplace would be one where it's a well-defined market, but you're having a niche offering within a well-defined market that significantly differentiates you from the competitors. Not quite a blue ocean, but something in the middle of that, in between a red ocean and a blue ocean. And for those of you who may not be familiar with the term red ocean and blue ocean, I did an office hours presentation on another really great business book called The Blue Ocean Strategy. I don't remember what number it was, but I love that because it talks about how important it is for you to discover your blue ocean. And of course, this book likes a blue ocean as well. Once you have stepped on the gas, and once you have proven that you can have a repeatable and scalable business model, then we go to step 4, which is building the company for the long term. We're transitioning out of startup mode, and we're building departments within our business to scale with the company. Oftentimes, by the way, this requires a change of leadership. It's not very common at all to where somebody who starts the business would also be able to transition into having the savvy necessary to grow the business in the long term. When you look at companies like Oracle with Larry Ellison or Microsoft with Bill Gates, those are extremely rare. We're seeing Facebook now with Mark Zuckerberg maybe hit one of those rare things as well. But all the other companies out there, the Apples, the Hewlett-Packards, I'm, of course, most familiar with the high-tech industry, usually replace their CEOs at some point in time in the process with somebody who has a lot more experience transitioning a company out of startup mode and into big company mode. Apple got rid of Steve Jobs and ran the company with other people before they brought him back in. Even Google with Larry Page and Sergey Brin essentially didn't put them to the side, but they strongly augmented their capability by bringing in another CEO to run the company for a long time, while those two folks were learning the business. We're learning how to be a very large business as opposed to a startup business. One of the things that as I found very interesting about this book was the tremendous number of what I consider to be fantastic quotes throughout the book. In fact, I had a page of about 20 of them. I'm just going to share a few of them with you right now. Here's a great quote. Failure is an integral part of the search for a business model. Absolutely true and a fantastic quote. While you are searching for your business model, the way that you can create a repeatable, sustainable, scalable business, you are going to fail along the way. You're going to listen to what your customers really have to say, and you're going to learn along the way. And that's just another way to describe, to use the term failure. It's not really a failure. It is listening and learning and pivoting. Listening and learning and pivoting. If you consider that to be failure, that's great. But so get used to the fact that you're going to have to change things. Learning that a hypothesis is wrong is not a crisis. In fact, it is a wonderful thing to say, wow, I thought this was true and it wasn't really true because this other thing is true. So learning that your original hypothesis was not a valid hypothesis is not necessarily a crisis. It can be a wonderful, wonderful thing. And pivoting, changing because you learn something that the marketplace can tell you is not a failure at all. A pivot is progress. And the final quote I'm going to share with you today is the goal of customer development is to understand what not to ship. It's not just to discover what to put into your products and services, but it's also there to discover what not to put in your product and services, what's to take out because it's not necessary and the customer really doesn't value it, that it adds time and cost to your product that is not significantly increasing the value of your product and service in the mind of your customers. So here's the bottom line. Number one is that there's only one proven way to bring new products and services to the marketplace, and that is the proven way defined with the lean startup methodology and defined in great detail in actionable form in the Startup's Owner's Manual, the book that we're talking about today. It takes a lot of humility to listen to your customers, but it really, really pays off. And if you're really starting your business as part of a personal redemption plan and you think that the hero's journey is what is really in store for you in the business, think again, set that to the side, listen to your advisors, listen to your customers, because the hero's journey too oftentimes ends up in failure. You're going to save a lot of money, a lot of time, and increase your probability of success when you listen to your customers and when you follow this one proven way to launch new products and services into the marketplace. Phew, that's been our agenda for today. We talked about the authors. We talked about their definition of a startup. We talked about the traditional new product development model versus the iterative model. We talked about the 9 deadly sins, the customer development manifesto, the 4 steps that they define, and the bottom line. So here's your homework. Get the book. Really get this book, because it is chock full of checklists and templates. I've really covered just a fraction of all the valuable information that's in the book. So buy it on Kindle, buy it in physical form. They've also got a way that you can sign up for a couple of dollars more and get downloads of all of the templates and checklists that they list in the book so you can have them in a more actionable form. Eliminate your resistance and follow the advice in the book, and get coaching and support to help you along the way from somebody who really gets it, somebody who understands how important it is to reach out and talk to the customer at every step along the way, and who really gets it. Because there are lots of consultants out there and coaches out there that don't know about the lean startup methodology, that haven't read the Startup Owner's Manual, and they don't get it. So they're going to try to coach you along the path of the waterfall methodology as opposed to the iterative process that we see defined so well in the Startup Owner's Manual. Here we're going to start with questions and answers in just a minute, where we're going to have comments and questions on the topic of the day and then any other issues that you might have. I want you to tell me what your biggest takeaways are and what insights that you gained from this presentation. Tell me what you're going to focus on, and post those in our Facebook group, if you would please, in the Brilliant Business group on Facebook. Go there so that you can get not just my advice and counsel, but the advice and counsel from all the other incredibly smart, intelligent, and wise people who are members in the Brilliant Business group. Here at the Hoyt Management Group, we offer a wide variety of support services. We have a broad portfolio of services so that you can get the support that you need to help you make sure that your next steps are the right steps wherever you are in the development of your business. With some of our products and services, we teach you how to do it for yourselves. With other ones, we do it with you in a very collaborative style, and we'll even do it for you if that's exactly the right thing for you and your business. I want to remind you that we're having an Awakened CEO conversation this Wednesday, May the 13th, with our special guest, Justin and Tonya Rekla. That's May the 13th at 6 p.m. Watch your emails for sign-up information. This will have a different link to it than every other webinar. That's one of the features of the system that I use, that you have to watch for your emails in order to get the right link to that webinar. Our next office hours will be on Monday, May the 18th. The topic is to be determined. I think I know what I'm going to talk about, but I'm not quite ready to announce it yet. Let me know what topics that you would like for me to address by going to paulsurvey.com and filling out the quick survey. And in between now and the time that we talk again, do your homework. And with that, we're going to open it up to questions and answers and coaching. Stephanie, do we have any comments or questions for us today?
Yes. Can you just repeat the book title again for us, just to get started?
The book's title is The Startup Owner's Manual. It has a subtitle to it that I can't quite remember, but it's The Startup Owner's Manual by Steve Blank and Bob Dorf. That's the name of the book, and it is a great book. Next question.
Perfect. I just want to open up a coaching business, but do I still need to discover my customer?
I think the answer is yes and no. So we know, for example, that people hire coaches. I mean, this is an example of a marketplace that's pretty well defined, and that there are lots and lots of people in too. So it has become, a very clogged market. This is a very red ocean whenever you go in to start a coaching business. So I don't think you have to ask people in general whether or not there is such a thing as a coaching business, but asking the questions about what have you had a coach before? Have you ever used a coach before? Have you considered using a coach before? If you've used a coach before, how much did you pay for that coach? Did you have a great experience? What did you really like about the coaches that you worked with? What did you not like about the coaches that you worked with? What would you like to see them put into their service offerings, and what would you like to see them leave out of their service offerings? Can be really, really great questions as you begin your coaching business. You can treat it as if you're bringing a new product or service to the market because it is new to you. One of the big advantages is to understand who is willing to pay $50 an hour for a coach and who is willing to pay $500 an hour for a coach. Whether or not they signed up on just a month-to-month basis, or whether or not they signed up for a years-long package, whether or not there were any volume purchase discounts offered if you bought more sessions than if you bought just a few sessions. And one of the most important reasons to do it is to discover the language that your customers like to use. Well, here's just an example of some of that. When we, in the early days of this business, not early days, even like 3 or 4 years ago, we began to talk about our services as we offered our services to small business owners, that we really focused on helping small business owners. And what we discovered when we went out to talk to our customers was that they don't want to be called small business owners. They want to be called CEOs and entrepreneurs. So now when we talk about the services that we provide and the products and services that we provide, you'll notice that I consistently talk about CEOs and entrepreneurs. I don't talk about small business owners. And the reason is because we asked our customers. We asked our customers, how do you want to be referred to? How do you refer to yourself? And the answer was, we like to call ourselves CEOs and entrepreneurs. We don't like to think of ourselves as small business owners. So that's just a good example of how listening to your customers, applying the concepts and principles in the Startup Owner's Manual to your business, even if you're sure that the business exists, can really pay off in the long run when it comes to pricing your product, packaging your product, and messaging with your product. In other words, talking to people about how you bring them value and the people that you want to work with. So that's a great question. Thank you for that question. Hopefully that answered it. The short answer was yes. I gave you the long answer. Stephanie, next question, please.
Well, it's a little bit more of what we were talking about here. How do you find the customers to do the actual market research now?
That is a great question. And how do you find your customers is you start where you think your customers are. You say that, I think that my customers are going to be this, they'll have these characteristics. They're going to be of this age, they'll maybe be male or female, they'll have this educational level, they'll have, they'll be at this stage of their business or wherever they are particularly. And we try to think of the people that we know that fit the profile that we have decided on for our first customers. It's an imaginary profile. We may or may not know people who are in that. And if we don't know people in that, then we ask the people that we do know, who do you know that fits this profile? So it's as simple as talking to the people that you know and say, hey, I want to talk to some people who have this characteristic, and this characteristic. That might be you. If that's you, I'd love to have the chance to ask you some questions. And if it's not you, who can you suggest that I talk to that fits that profile? So if your profile is, for example, that I want to start a business that's going to serve veteran entrepreneurs, as I know a couple of people on this call who are serving veteran entrepreneurs with their business, then we go find the veteran entrepreneurs, and we can find them on military bases. We can find them in our network. It really just doesn't take long at all to pick up the phone or to put up a little a Facebook post or a LinkedIn post saying, hey, I'd like to have a conversation with people that fit this profile, and you talk to them. The big key here, by the way, is the people that you think are your customers are not likely to be your real customers. They're likely to lead you to your real customers. After you do 15 or 20 or 30 of these interviews, you'll find out that your definition of who you really think your customer is has changed significantly because of the people that you've talked to. So the answer is start where you can, start with who you know, and ask the questions of the people that you think fit your customer profile, and then modify your customer profile based upon the feedback that you get from those initial interviews. Great question. Next question.
So true. Well, you know, Paul, that's interesting. Just to comment on that, you and I were talking about this just last week, that one of the most important things I learned from one of my past mentors was to get the most negative people that I possibly could in a room and get all of their negative feedback, which helped so much turn what I have had into the positive. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Did I say that right?
Congratulations on being that powerful. It takes a strong person to look somebody in the eye and say, what's wrong with this? You know, in what way does this idea suck? You know, just let me have it. I just want to hear about it. Play the devil's advocate. Tell me everything that's wrong with it. But oh my goodness, can you learn so much from people? And yeah, some of it's just going to be negative, and maybe even some of it's mean-spirited, but you're going to find some absolute golden nuggets in their criticism, in their ideas. And by telling you what's wrong with it, they are in essence telling you what you can do to make it right. So I love that. Good comment, Steffi. Next.
Well, now let's get into the next one here, which again cues off of that. What happens if I discover my business model might not work?
Well, if you discover your business model might not work, you can try to change your business model. But if you discover after trying to change your business model that it's still not going to work, then pat yourself on the back, you know, sip a nice tall one and say, thank you, God, for helping me discover this before I spent $250,000 on my own money to do it. And I can talk to you about people who have not followed the startup business model. Early in my career, I talked to a gentleman who needed help, you know, right away because he had $100,000 worth of inventory that he had taken his life savings and his brother's life savings and put into designing a product, and went to China. But to get the price point down to where he thought that he needed it to be down to, he bought $100,000 worth of inventory, and then he tried to sell it. And unfortunately, he couldn't sell it. He couldn't sell it at a price point to make a profit. So I think eventually he cut his losses by selling the product at a loss. And maybe if he was lucky, he only lost $50,000 instead of losing $100,000. But that's a classical type of mistake that you can make. I have another client who has tried to redesign their product 5 or 6 times, and they finally reached the point to where the technology just isn't there to make this a profitable product today. So now they're in the mode of waiting 3 or 4 years until the technology will catch up with their product idea, because they know if they can just make this one little component for $2 instead of $20, that the whole thing is going to work, and it's going to work extremely well because that's what their research has told them. So there's a couple of different options whenever you find out that your business model is not going to work. Number one is keep changing your business model, different price points, different customers, different product features until you find one that is going to work. Number two is you might have to wait on technology, computer technology, materials science technology. Maybe you wait on the marketplace until the marketplace is ready for it. And so it might just be a little bit waiting game, or it might be one of those, thank you, I'm just glad that I didn't spend all my life saving on this idea, and you move on to the next idea. That's my experience, by the way, with very creative, inventive people, is that they don't run out of ideas. fact, one of the biggest challenges that they have is they have too many ideas. We got this idea and that idea and the next idea, and we're working on 10 or 12 ideas at the same time, and focus can be a really big problem with creative people. So if this particular one doesn't work, well, then set it to the side, thank goodness for the learning, and then proceed to move forward with your next idea using the concepts and principles in the Startup's Owner's Manual so that you have a much better chance of success. Hope that was helpful. Next question.
That's beautiful. Okay. Does working in a large company help you with this process?
And I think the answer is absolutely not. In fact, the exact opposite is true. My experience with vice presidents and general managers of large corporations, especially if they didn't have full P&L responsibility, is that they make lousy entrepreneurs. They make lousy entrepreneurs because they're used to an infrastructure around them that really supports them. They're used to having people who do the marketing. They're used to having people that do the sales. They're used to having people that do the accounting and the product development and all the other things. And when they start out in business, they find that they thought that their experience in managing even a large business unit within a corporate America was going to be sufficient for their business success. They find that that's not exactly true at all, that the skill set does not transfer well. The same skills that allow people to be a very effective manager, even at the vice president level in a large company, are not the same skills that allow you to be an effective entrepreneur or CEO. Because it's almost counterintuitive when we're saying you don't know who your customer is, and you don't know what features your customers are going to consider to be valuable, and you have to get out and talk to your customers because you don't know these things. That can be really, really difficult for somebody who has been successful in other areas of their life to accept, because that's kind of a humble thing. It's kind of a humble thing to say, I don't know. And usually people who have been very successful in a large company have difficulty understanding how little their skills and experience transfer into being an effective CEO or entrepreneur, and how little they really know about their marketplace until they get out to their marketplace. So I see the exact opposite to be true. I've not ever seen, I don't want to say this, but I've seen, I'll say it differently. I have seen many vice presidents of marketing, vice presidents of sales, vice presidents of engineering, vice presidents of business units within fairly substantial large companies fail miserably as a CEO, because as an entrepreneur specifically, because they just didn't get it. They didn't understand that it was a completely different skill set. It's like Michael Jordan, one of the best basketball players of all time, trying to play baseball. It's a different skill set. Michael Jordan couldn't hit a curveball, so he went back in and won like 3 more championships, which was a pretty good idea for him to do that. And you may find, by the way, if your skill set is really with large America, that hitting the curveball is just not possible for you, and you may choose to go back in and be massively, wonderfully successful working in a large company, as opposed to being miserable and not very successful having your own business. Next question.
Okay, I think we got time for one more.
Okay.
How long does this process take?
My guess is from a minimum of 30 to 60 days to do the first step. So for example, if you want to talk to 100 people that you think are your customers, you want to get out of the building and go talk to them face to face, which by the way is the guidance here. We get out of the building, we talk to them face to face. That means you've got drive time, you've got interview time, you've got telephone time. You know, if you would do 2 or 3 of these calls a day, face-to-face, one-on-one with your clients, that's pretty darn good. And if you do 3 a day over 30 or 45 days, that's how long it's going to take to do these initial interviews. It might take you 60 days. It might take you 90 days because you think that your customer, so for example, as the CEO of a large medical device company, you know, it might take a long time to get those interviews scheduled and to get in your car or get on a plane and go out and see your customers. So I think a minimum of 30 days and probably more like 60 days or 90 days to get through the first phase, the customer discovery phase, where we're discovering who our customer really is and what they really want in the products and services that we are bringing to marketplace. I'm going to call that the final question. I want to encourage you once again to read the Startup Owner's Manual, because I think it's a great book. Buy the book because it has checklists and templates in it that you can use for a long time. I want to invite you again to join me this Wednesday, May the 13th at 6 p.m. for another Awakened Conversation with our special guest, Justin and Tonya Rekla. And until we meet again, this is Paul Hoyt wishing you a most marvelous and prosperous day. Bye-bye.